Yeah,
Hmm.
basically, bro, you can use anything. Like also in my other track called, I think it's called Wanna Play a Game. It's like horroristic ambience in the breakdowns and in the beginning. And it's actually I went to the toilet with a handheld recorder.
Music production, despite numerous plugins, instruments, and sample packs to choose from, can still feel limiting. Beginner producers for many years can stick to what seems as a set of unwritten rules. Over time, this can lead to a loss of creativity, so that's why I'm inviting today to my channel MZPERX, who likes to break generic patterns. This guy samples his friends' voice messages, uses both FL Studio and Ableton to produce hard techno, and it doesn't stop him from getting released on Innergate and playing gigs all over the Europe. In today's session, he will give you an all-round advice on songwriting and sparking creativity in your productions. We will learn basics of arranging the track using Ableton's Session View, differences between FL Studio and Ableton, and how to approach DJs when it comes to branding and sending your own promos. Thank you very much for coming to my channel, so we can show to my audience maybe something different from what's already Geralt and LS41 showed us. Just to remind, we got a very insightful suggestion from one of my viewers, and I'm going to read it out. It would be cool to tackle the topic songwriting arrangement with a pro. There are endless videos showing how to build, layer, mix kicks, perks, synths, etc. But there are so few that talk about storytelling, and it is such an important and also difficult part of the whole process. People and myself often overlook that. If we have the opportunity to watch such a pro in action here, I would find it very, very cool if you could shed light on this topic. So yes, I'm wondering what have you prepared for today's session. I think we have been talking about a set of tips that could inspire or spark creativity in a producer. I'm curious on how is that going to match with this songwriting slash arrangement subject that was mentioned in the comments.
So for first, this comment was very cool, and I also wanted to focus more on this creative process and storytelling. My original plan was to record some sounds in the studio. For example, like things like my keys, or basically me just breathing into the microphone. But we had some trouble with my main studio computer, so we have to do things on my laptop. So maybe I will use some sample pack sounds to create that atmospheric sound.
Yeah, actually,
But
that could be probably more convenient for other
but
people because, for example, I also.
but it is very simple. Like uh let's say if you want to build like a dark ambience kind of thing,
Mhm.
basically you can just go outside, go to the street, go to the park, go to the toilet, or go to the train station or whatever, and record some ambience noises, and just imported, put a lot of reverb on it, effects, and maybe pitch it down or pitch it up. That's basically how you can create a nice ambience.
Okay, and to record that ambience, do you have a separate handheld recorder like some Zoom device, or
I
you have been
I
working with
do
your
have
cell phone, for example?
but actually, it's still more convenient for me to use just my phone.
Mm-hmm. And do you have an example, maybe one of your projects where you did already use such a recording in your track?
Yes, for example, one of my most popular track, Ah Shit,
Mm-hmm.
and the pre-dub vocal is like in German, and actually that's just from my friend's voice message from Facebook Messenger.
I don't know if you, by the way, know drum and bass trio, if I remember well, called Noisia, that back in the days when an old drum and bass forum docs on Acid was live, they were posting a whole thread on how did they create one of most sick wrist-based sounds using a vacuum cleaner recording.
This is Noisia, and this is our special super mega cyber bassline secret 2000 Mark III.
Yeah, basically, bro, you can use anything. Like also in my other track called, I think it's called Wanna Play a Game. It's like horroristic ambience in the breakdowns and in the beginning. And it's actually, I went to the toilet with a handheld recorder. And I just recorded the whole, like the air freshener in my hand and things like that. So and like the fan, the ceiling fan that the toilet has. So
Yeah.
and I pitched it down a few semitones and I used that. So literally you can use anything that you have to create something like that. Nowadays it's pretty easy. Just have to be creative. Like just do it. I will try, at least if it's not something similar to this, but I will try to find some trashy sample or recording to show what I can do with it.
Yeah, that could simulate this sort of recording you would normally use.
But let's start with like I'm gonna build now a very basic idea.
Yeah, sure.
So that way I'm gonna first build a very basic idea with some kick drums, etc. And then I'm gonna show like the creative part. So let's get into it.
Sure.
I just got this kick. Usually I do a lot of processing on the kicks, or at least I layer them. But no, I'm gonna go with just a simple kick that I find as promising on its own, and I think that I always used it already in some of my tracks. Usually I do cut the samples and I don't really use the how do you call it, like the pattern function in FL Studio. I don't use it for the kicks. I use it for maybe percussion.
Okay, and do you start out most of your projects with indeed a kick drum?
Of course. And the first tip, or I don't know, it's maybe the second already, but is you can try distortion on everything. Distortion does not mean the sound gonna go, let's say, fresh, but sometimes it does not fit with some sound or kick drum. Because let's say this kick drum, I'm gonna test it with some distortion. One thing that you have to be sure about if you put distortion on a kick, it's make sure that you do not overdo it so you don't lose the bass part of the kick. Because just check it, like if I'm not on the sweet spot, you can hear it's like the bass, the sub is just disappearing. But here it's still distorted, but still has a bit of low end. So, and maybe even you can do a little bit of low end boost after the distortion. It really depends on the kick drum, like what frequency you should boost at how much. So basically the golden rule for all kind of music is that use your ears. Like I remember when I started making music, I often failed because I was watching tutorials on YouTube and I was doing just the same as they do in the video, but like every sound is different. So maybe they EQ the hi-hat differently, but your hi-hat is different. So why do apply the same processing if your sound is not the same?
Yeah,
So
that
basically just
is
learn to listen carefully and do your choices based on that, on how it sounds. So
yeah.
I just
Unfortunately, this is something that probably can't be learned by just watching YouTube videos. It's I would say it's like with learning how to drive a car. When you pass a driving license test, you are
or
driving
how to
in
ride a
some,
bicycle.
yeah, in some, let's say, Toyota car, and then when you get a license, your parents buy you the other car, and suddenly
Yeah.
everything works differently. And same could be applied to the music production, gigs, samples, processing, equalization, and so on. Okay, but you have said that if we overuse distortion on kick sounds, it's going to end up with a kick sound that has no low end.
Yeah,
Yeah?
and also it's a main problem in a lot of demos and promos I received that or I saw some people putting videos up online is that they think distortion sounds good on every kick. No, it's not the case. Like some of that really sounds good with distortion and it gives some energy or something to it. Some kicks just become distorted and not sound good at all. Like doesn't have that power and the punch.
It is as if many people try to use just distortion out of habit, even though the
Yeah.
kick drum is already distorted from the beginning.
I'm gonna look for some hi-hats now.
Personally, what I can add when it comes to using distortion is that when I browse projects other people sent me for lessons, for example, I often see that on many channels a saturator from Ableton is used, and this effect does not do anything aside from making the sound louder. There is literally no distortion added, but these people keep using such, for example, saturator or also distortion effect on every channel, but it doesn't change the sound in any way. It just makes it louder.
It makes it louder, yeah, of course, and it makes it more tasty. And I actually do almost use distortion on almost all my channels. So
Yeah, but this distortion actually should change the sound even by just a bit. If this distortion effect just makes the sound louder, well,
sometimes like it acts a bit like a kind of gluey effect as well, like merges sounds together a bit well and creates the mix more full because it distortion creates upper harmonics.
Yeah, of course. And it can also indeed reduce a bit the dynamics, so that is why that gluing happens. But still, if you use, yes, a distortion for gluing, then it still is doing something different for the sound aside from just making it louder.
Yes, of course. That's also the way you can shape the sounds, like you can give different character, and you're gonna see it just now. I have this hi-hat, so I'm gonna route both the bit longer and all the short kind of hi-hat to the mixer. And there's many things you can do to make it more unique. You can do crazy things like a hi-hat setup, and I'm soloing that and gonna apply some crazy things to it. Like I may apply, let's say, flood overdrive. Yeah, and of course you should always be careful with the volume. And also sometimes if you distort the sound, it creates some nasty frequencies on the low end. If you don't clear that, it's gonna destroy your mix. So if you go extreme on distortion with like hi-hats, for example, make sure to clean the bit of the low end.
Yeah, that would be something to remember as well, that if you use lots of distortions, then not only you can add these higher frequencies, but also you can add some of the low end in just some way. But
And
that's
you can,
just how two other distortion
yeah,
methods can work.
it's actually like against the rule, but sometimes you can do things like the reverb before the distortion.
Mm-hmm.
And you can create crazy things. Like you can also play around with the pitch. You can also add a bit of reverb to the kick as well, or let's say just you know, like slight touch of ambience kind of thing.
For mid and higher frequencies.
Just make sure the low end is gonna be in mono, like up until 150 or something like that.
Any specific frequency range you always make more narrow or mono in the stereo field, or again we
It
are
really
just
depends.
using our ears?
It really depends on the track. I also do stereo imaging on the mastering process sometimes, but it always depends on the track, like what elements in the track, whatever. But usually the lows I keep mono until 150.
Okay.
You can hear that even like very tiny things make a lot of difference.
Yeah, of course.
No, add some. I wanna go crazy with this one, like super distorted or something. I love distortion. There are basically like very minimal settings that can make a huge change, like how long is your sample. Okay, maybe no. We gonna do some creative work with the percussion. It's basically just trial and error. It doesn't
Okay,
even
and
matter like what kind of sample pack I choose from. Like you can choose a percussion from even like a hyper pop or you know what kind of any kind of sample pack. That's also a thing that a lot of people do wrong. Like they wanna do hard techno, they only search for hard techno sample packs and
oh yeah,
things
that
like
could
that.
be another good tip for sampling. For example, when I work with ambient sounds and I want to do something atmospheric, I just sample sound effects from video games instead of, for example, yeah, looking for hard techno packs.
Here you can see I'm using like free download cymatics,
Mm-hmm.
real essential drum kit. It's absolutely not like a hard techno.
Definitely.
I just put it in randomly, like a pattern, and you can just try it. And if it does not sound good, maybe move it. Just that's all. On its own, as you can hear, it sounds not so interesting. But no, I'm gonna add the channels.
Mm-hmm. You have mentioned a few minutes ago that indeed you are using the sequencer for percussive sounds only, but the kick drums you arrange them directly in the playlist. Is there any reason for that?
I think it's just preference. Actually, like for the sound, it's better to not, because if you do like use the pattern for sample kicks, it makes like, the end is not cutted.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
it overlaps the sound.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes strange things like the first kick hits very hard on and the last is like a bit lower at the attack.
Yeah, of course. But I think in the channel settings in FL Studio you have the cut itself option.
Sorry?
But I think that in the channel settings, in each channel settings in FL Studio, when you use samples, you have the cut itself option.
Maybe. It was for me just easier,
Okay.
like, and also I can see the pattern here as well, so maybe we'll try that as well. But this so maybe let's just leave as it is, like, well, or maybe I can.
And are you using most of the times only FL Studio native effects?
It's different all the time. I also use basically whatever I found interesting. I also love Fab Filter. I just wanna, not make my computer heavy on this, so
Oh, yeah,
it will not
sure.
crash or anything. But basically, you can do a lot of things with the basic FL Studio plugins. I figured this out for myself, and I had not installed all the other fancy plugins and just wanted to create. And I figured out like I can create most of that with very basic plugins. And I do know some like kind of high ranking artists as well who only use stock stuff. So
Okay.
basically, you can do anything you want. You can use sometimes chorus to play around and with the stereo field a bit. I find it very useful. I never tried it in percussion, but just randomly the idea came for me. One thing that I would not use it on is definitely kick, for sure.
Yeah, because that would destroy the face.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's about changing the phase, so I don't feel it distorted enough. And of course, you can apply distortion in like multiple turns.
In series.
Yeah. I want it to be even a bit more more semitones down, so maybe even deeper. So halftime is like a very crazy plugin that it's sort of like a gross beat kind of thing, but I wouldn't say it's mostly for rappers and hip hop producers to make pianos sound more dark and things like that. But you can use everything you want. So
Yeah, I was just wondering, why would you want to use the halftime effect when you have the crossbeat on from FL Studio, which is just superior?
it's actually it's way different from gross bass, but similar in the way that it is doing slowdowns, but it's basically looping it, or how do I explain it? Feel this a bit high now. No, that. I do always play around the pitch, so I just cut down the very low so it does not clash with the kick.
Yeah, of course. Because now, after using distortion on nearly all the sounds we have so far, there can be indeed a challenge to make the beat later to sound clean.
Yes, for sure. Maybe I will add some loop for the top or something. I'm gonna see.
And what is in the go-to stuff folder? Are these your signature samples that you use very, very often?
Kind of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or stuff that I haven't used but I plan to use. It can be very handy, and I want to create some MIDI files in it and some samples that I use often and things like that. And I think no, I'm gonna go a bit for the arrangement.
Okay.
I think I'm not always this technique works, but no, I think I'm gonna go with like the reverse kick for the beginning. Yeah, like there are some things that I prefer about FL Studio, but for example, reversing a kick would be much easier in Ableton.
Oh, the grid in Ableton is tricky sometimes as well.
So I now I'm trying to create like an intro kind of thing.
Yeah, now it doesn't sound like a crash sample at all.
Yeah, like it's just an exhaust kind of sound right now. Let's say that.
The shuffle in the air. Be ready for push into shit for sure.
Maybe I could do things like use the same percussion but a bit different, or for just one shot.
Mm-hmm, with a different pattern.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe just like this. Very simple. I'm gonna look for something to add. Here's some drone sound, but most of the time I don't want to leave as it is. So maybe I change the pitch up or down. Maybe here I will cut and I will try to look for some, I don't know, maybe. I will try to look for some vocal kind of thing, like a pre-drop or something.
So yeah.
Sometimes it's all about searching for the right sound.
Yeah, especially if you have such a big library of samples.
Yeah, and I used to had like a way bigger library.
Acapulco Gold, ever hear of that, kid?
Oh, well, once you get a bag, you just roll up joints and sell them. You get your money back. And then
Reefer is good for...
yeah, grass is great for that.
Mac has managed to get himself stoned.
Not really the vibe that I'm looking for. Usually I just save my stuff that are part of some tracks, or like kind of similar to go-to folder is like just homemade sample.
Yeah, and would that folder contain sounds you have sampled from some, I don't know, TikTok videos, or are there your recordings you have?
My
made with your
recordings
phone,
as
for
well,
example?
and
I like the color.
you can like
Yeah, some people said they don't like it, and I said, well, what color's your brigade?
we can try to manage to use that from YouTube.
Well, what color's your brigade? Well, what color's your brigade?
I'm gonna try to clean it up somehow. It's actually sometimes it's very difficult to clean up and process the vocals that are on YouTube.
Well, what color's your brigade?
I do actually started a track with that sample. I just have not finished it yet, so people don't use it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what color's your brigade? Well, what color's your brigade?
Maybe I do add some distortion on it. I don't know.
Well, what color's your brigade? Well, what color's your brigade?
Make some add some chorus.
Well, what color's your brigade? Well, what color's your brigade? Well, what color's your brigade? Well, what color's your brigade?
And for the arrangement, I usually try to listen to my tracks while I'm making them, just like a listener, and I want to do things that I'm expecting as a listener, and I try to do that in the track, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Often what helps is, for example, minimizing just the FL Studio window. Yes, playing the track and closing the window so you don't see the arrangement. You
Yeah,
can just
I-
listen to it only, for example.
Also, it is a good suggestion that you put your track on your phone, like, or on your demo, and or for example, the easiest method is if you have like a SoundCloud subscription and you upload it in private, and you just go outside, smoke a cigarette, take a walk, and listen to it a few times. that helps a lot. And maybe make some notes on your phone, like, okay, the kick needs a bit of more low end or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or this part or that part could be a speech in the other, or the drop 3 could be the drop 1, and drop 1 could be the drop 2.
Yeah, so it would not only be important to listen to your music through different devices, and this is something what you read often. You want to check your track, your mix on your headphones, on your speakers, on car sound system. What you also recommend is to also listen to your music in just a different place or environment, just outside from your typical home studio where you always produce.
Yes. Like, for example, buy a kind of earphone or headphone for your phone that you kind of like in general the tracks, other people's track, how it sounds on that pair of headphones. And if you're satisfied how the other tracks sound, you should be satisfied with your track if it sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that definitely that part was missing for me for like a year or so, and I do experienced some quality change in my music, so I started to use that technique again to make me more happy with my music again. So I do take my music to walks, and it's also a good idea because in general it makes your mind a bit clearer, that you go outside, take a walk, whatever. Because sometimes if you sit in there for like 6 hours in front of a computer, it doesn't make anything better.
Yeah, sure. It sounds like a great idea indeed.
So that's a really powerful thing, that if you just go outside.
Touch the grass.
Even for these, I mean, you can go into nature, and sometimes taking a rest is more helpful than focusing all the time on it, since it's a creative kind of thing. It's not like I don't know, it's not like studying that you focus on it and you read books all night long or whatever. It's a creative thing. It's a form of art. Your mind have to be ready to create something.
Of course. Okay,
so
what is next?
Turbo guy.
Here I feel it needs something like feel or I don't know, something that have been added. Maybe some kind of breakbeat, but I don't know where to find. Some breakbeats, maybe somewhere here.
Well, what color's your brigade?
Basically, nowadays the arrangement looks like 8 or 16 bars, or sometimes 32 bars sections.
Mm-hmm. And
Actually,
yeah,
I prefer to work in 8-bar sections because it's more interesting.
so it's like you are
Or
building it's like you are
or
building 8 bars long blocks of arrangement, and then you try to, for example, merge them together with some small bridges or
yeah, but
effects.
I sometimes do changes in 4 bars, so it makes it even more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do keep like intros and these kind of sections as maximum 8 bars or something like that in general, but you know, it can be different. It can be 32, it can be 16. It really, the arrangement whole the whole is depends on what kind of elements you want to try to build it on your track. If we talk about storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
But
would
in
be,
general,
yes.
I would say that don't really go like more than 25 or 32 bars of parts, but ideally no more than 16 even. It's because of, like, for the DJs, it's not really mix friendly if you have, let's say, middle of the track, you have like 1 minute breakdown. When it's the first half minute, it's just some atmospheric sound.
Yeah, for example, without any hi-hat that could give a clue on how to beat match.
Yeah, but sometimes it does not even fit if you put the hi-hat in there, so maybe make it a bit shorter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, because basically I can give you some tips on the arrangement, like do not try to push yourself that, oh, of course it's like hard techno, so I have to make it I don't know, 6 minute long or 5 minute more long or whatever.
Oh,
Because
it never works.
yeah, like I do usually go up to 193 bars or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I may do even a bit shorter. I want my music interesting and not boring. So, and in any ways, if you look at the current trends, even in this scene, it's like they're playing out like 1.5, maybe 2 minutes of a track. So why you're trying to push yourself so hard that, oh, I have to make a 5-6 minute track? No, you don't have to.
Because a DJ still might play just 2 minutes out of it.
Yeah, of course, and with today's equipment, uh, you can perfectly beat match from that 8 bars.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. It's different than back in the days when they had sometimes only just vinyl records.
And that would be also the reason for why, for example, now you made the intro that short, just 8 bars long.
Yeah, of course, and it's not even for DJs. This intro is not for DJs.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the listeners. I do figured out. Of course, it's also a good thing that you can listen to some music that you like and try to copy, or get inspired by the arrangement, how they arrange. Let's say, for example, this first 8-bar intro is for the listeners who listen to the music on SoundCloud, and it makes them feel the kicks, the whole will drop, or it's like actually the DJ intro starts at 8 bar here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's for the DJ from here. And this one is for the listeners.
Okay,
So I try to do like I combine the arrangement for the streaming audience and for the DJ audience, and try to go in the middle that can be used for both.
Okay, so if I just to make sure I understand it right, in this project, that short intro, the first 8 bars, they could be, let's say, intended for a listener, because if some DJ wanted to play that track during a set, that DJ would introduce that track starting from the 9th bar after the first drop.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as a DJ, I would do it from there. There could be some exceptions, but you can just easily set up in record box hot cue here, or that's not a long part. So even if a DJ see it on the CDJ screen that it has an intro like this, you can easily move the cue point to here. So and basically.
And if you are accepting demos for the tracks you would like to play in the sets, do you also pay that much of an attention to the structure of the track? So, for example, if one sent you a track that has a long intro, like, yes, it sounds dope, but it has a quite long intro and maybe without percussion sounds, and it would be a bit difficult for you to mix that track into a set. Would you accept that track or not? Like, how important it is for a DJ to structure the track in the way you are describing now?
Actually, if the track is very, very sick, even has like a half minute that is very, very sick, I would accept it and I would download it and play it with some hot cues or something like that. Or, play with the intro or use that as an intro for my set. But if it's not that interesting, or it's the case that I explained that the producer just wanted to make it 5 minutes longer, I would probably not download it and not play it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it is an interesting subject on, let's say, how to maybe express yourself, or how to indeed, let's say, tell a story with the arrangement, with the track, if you come with the challenge of arranging your track to be short.
And also, if you're a DJ as well, you can do things like demo versions, or how do I say that? Put it on your pen drive, record box it, and test it live, and see if the arrangement works good. Or like, just think about it, how you can change it to make it fit better. Also, if you feel like you want to do like a 1.5 minute long intro or 1 minute intro, you feel it and you want to express in this way, you can do that. Like, no problem with that. Maybe some DJs will not play your track, but that should not be the. If you want to create art, that should not be the first thing in place,
I see.
I think the number one priority is to create something good, and it doesn't matter what genre it is or what kind of arrangement it has, or how many big DJs played it in Tomorrowland.
We will be doing something more to the arrangement, or are we coming back to the sound design or another creative tip?
The next step would be possibly to create like a 8 or 16 bar long breakdown, or like an 8 bar breakdown and then an 8 bar build up. and then the drop. And for the drop, I can show you, like, maybe I would begin my drop if I would make a drop now as very simple.
Guy.
Sometimes it hits more if you leave just one or maximum two elements in a first part of the drop, because it has space, you know.
I guess
Also,
that would depend on the kick drum.
of course, sometimes it's not that prominent, but in this style, most of the time, the kick drum is like the main element. And a tip for FL Studio users for arrangement: I do patterns and everything that you have. You can try to use the mute function to try out a different arrangements inside, for example, a drop. Like you see, I muted the faster heads here, but I can add it back here, and I can. So this one, I think, if you inside some parts, inside the drop or inside a breakdown or a build-up or anything, this mute tool can be the most powerful to quickly try out different arrangements inside FL Studio.
Oh yeah, instead of removing the patterns and then trying to add them again.
Yeah, and I do use that a lot. Like even for different sounds, I'm not sure I'm gonna use or I'm gonna use maybe later. I just mute it and just drag it down or something, you know. I still have it in the project, but not hearable. So that's a really good tip for arrangement purposes. If you once created some really dope track, try to figure out what was really dope in it and what made people love it. There's nothing wrong with stealing from yourself. One of my really experienced producer friend told me, like, years ago when I started, very, very useful secret. It's a big secret about music production. Just do it.
Simple as that, right?
Yeah, it's that. Like, you do it and you try to learn and try to figure out things, and that's just trial and error.
Okay.
And I'm gonna give some suggestions and tips for like the ones who are just starting right now, like I was years ago. Like and how I did it. Like the first demos are gonna be like you're gonna be super hyped that, wow, I created, what the fuck, it's such a banger, and you're gonna feel like that because you created something.
Yeah.
Even though it's not gonna sound good. Sometimes it's not gonna sound good at all. But to show it to your not really producer kind of friends, and they also gonna say, it's wow, it's very good. And the best thing you can do is save those tracks for privates.
At least the first few ones.
Yes, I mean for that. Or maybe ask some really advanced producers, send out promos. Just send DMs on SoundCloud. Hey, it's my new track. Can you listen to it? I would be thankful for a little feedback or something like that.
But you never know if someone is going to even read your message.
Yeah, you can never be sure. Like, it's very hard to actually. I'm not even like super famous or something like that, but it's even hard for me to reply the messages and check the demos and on Instagram, on SoundCloud, on email. So it's kind of tricky to answer all of that.
Yeah, of course, since you are traveling a lot and waiting on airplanes, on airline. I mean, on the
Yeah,
airports and such.
and many other messages come as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay. If I remember right, you said you wanted to, I think from the 25th bar, to add, if I remember well, a 16 bars long bridge with an 8 bars long build up, right? That would, that's what you do to advance
something
the
like
arrangements.
that. Yeah, I would do like basically I would start out with this, like at the crash again and the ambience or the drone or whatever I had.
So like recycling a bit the intro.
Of course, like that's a golden rule. Try to recycle the things that you already have in your project. So that also unifies the sound in the track. Like it's good that you asked. So it's a good suggestion for storytelling purposes, that try to reuse the stuff that you already have the project. So
yeah.
So sometimes I also have the problem with the demos I receive, that the track has very sick parts. Like drop 1 is very sick, drop 2 is very sick, it has even 5 drops, or I don't know, and 2 breakdowns and 3 bridges and whatever, and all of them is sick. But one track, it sounds like it could be a whole album, you know.
Yes, it's some parts of the track sound like something totally
it has
different.
too many ideas inside one track. So if try to do as many things with as little things as possible.
We could see that even in the beginning when you were arranging that short intro. You started from reusing the percussion sounds at first, and then you tried to fill the empty spaces with more sounds from your samples library.
Yes, exactly. And that way you will not also crash your computer most likely, and you know it helps a lot. And it's like a must, you know. Like, of course you can there could be exceptions, but it's, I think it's key and the important thing to set up the vibe, because nowadays music, basically any genre, it's about the vibe. It's not about the melody. It's not about, I mean, it, of course, definitely it can be about the melody and things like that, but it's about the vibe. Try to create a vibe.
Yeah, and if the vibe in the intro is, for example, cool, of course you can use it in the breakdown as well, and then the latter elements of the parts of the track, following that recycling principle. And yeah, if someone would want to think that it seems like an easy or lazy way to produce, so basically if you check out any like full proper album, for example, let it be the Entity album from RG that was released a year ago. If you would analyze the arrangement, very often in these tracks and from that album, also the breakdown uses a lot of elements from the intros. And if you want to not seem lazy, yes, create 2 different drops, and it's already going to make the arrangement, yes, interesting. And as you have said, you keep that unified and coherent sound.
Yes, for sure. And one other tip for producers that helped me a lot still is that if I have, let's say I made like a really sick drop or whatever, but I miss the other parts of the track. Even then, try to build the parts that you already know what's gonna be, or at least what kind of it's gonna be like, and what kind of elements it's gonna have. So let's say I know this part is gonna be the same as the bridge after the second drop or the outro. Then try to copy it, and you trying to build it like a skeleton. And then later you find it more easier to just fill the parts that are still empty.
Yeah, it is way easier than trying to imagine the whole arrangement when
just
the playlist is empty.
Try to sketch what the whole gonna look like for a track. I have like a trick if I'm really stuck with like managing the arrangement of a track, is that basically I make loops from the track parts that I already have. I select them, parts that I want, and I make some loops out of it. Like okay, I export it.
And all these loops you export, whether it's just a kick drum loop or kick drum with percussion loop?
I will export them separately.
But you will use them later for resampling to make the arrangement more interesting?
Yeah, in Ableton.
Ah, okay. Yes, because if I remember well, in the beginning we have been talking about using both FL Studio and Ableton in today's session. So as someone who uses both DAWs and simultaneously, I could ask you about your opinion on both DAWs, because it seems like you are using both Ableton and FL Studio for different reasons. So I think each of these DAWs would give you different benefits. What do you think of it?
Exactly. Like Ableton, sometimes the stock plugins is so much better, but most of the cases I use it for something like I start making a kick in Ableton because I prefer Ableton for creating kicks. I feel more comfortable with layering them. Like it's easy to use the MIDI sampler option. Like you just drag a sound into a MIDI channel, and instantly you have a sampler, and it's easier to create some kicks. And I also love the send and return, send delay and send reverb that Ableton has in stock. So I mainly use it for kick design.
Yeah, definitely.
But as
you're gonna see, comes to my mind.
But as you're gonna see, I'm using it for different creative purposes as well. So I exported also the first head. I'm gonna export like past heads.
Yeah, each track in a playlist separately.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about FL Studio? What is so useful in FL Studio if you say that Ableton stock plugins seem to be better for you, and if you also say that it seems like with Ableton it's easier to create kick drums, what's in for FL Studio then?
There's basically I can explain it very simple what's good and what's bad about FL Studio and both about Ableton.
Okay, go on.
The main thing about FL Studio is that it feels like just playing a game. It's like very enjoyable. You just throw samples, patterns, things like that. So it's very enjoyable way of making music. At the same time, for example, if I want to record vocals, I want to record the guitars into that project, and or for example, use like external hardware units, like compressors, EQs, effects, whatever. It's really hard to route it in FL Studio in a good way, and it's much easier to do it in Ableton, for example. Basically, Ableton is like a word in between creating electronic music and the classic music recording DAW.
The thing about FL Studio plugins surprised me a bit because personally I think most of Ableton effects seem to be better. Maybe a few years ago, if you ask me, I would say that FL Studio has better instruments because they already had a either Citrus or Toxic Biohazard synthesizer. But since Live 11, when the wavetable came inside with Ableton, I would say that there, at least in my opinion, there are not many benefits to use an FL Studio over Ableton.
Yeah, I prefer it because of the workflow, and some plugins in FL Studio are really good. Some are not that great. So basically, the perfect DAW would be like the mixture of two. For example, the FL Studio piano roll is like legendary. Like many people say that it's the best.
Yeah, that's for sure. What I miss most in Ableton is the fact that you can't group notes and colors like in FL Studio. Even though in Live 12 there is an update to the piano roll, it's still not as developed as the piano roll in FL Studio.
Yeah, I hope it will be one day.
Because I'm not sure, can you now draw chords in Live 12 as in FL Studio, where you just pick a chord and with a single mouse click you create a whole chord inside of Ableton's piano roll?
I'm not sure about. I don't use that much MIDI data. Like I'm not that big of a chords guy, you know.
Okay. Seems like we have all the hi-hats and kick channels exported. Yeah. So it seems we will continue the arrangement with just 4 exported waves.
Yeah. I'm opening now Ableton.
It's going to seem quite challenging considering that you will want to resample also these channels in one way or another. Do you have something specific in mind on, or do you have already an idea on how are you going to resample any of these?
One thing I forgot to explain about Ableton that is also so professional is that in the live view, as you can see here, the performance mode, basically if you do add like any loop or sample, it's very good in stretching it to the BPMs. Like it does not destroy that much the sound than that FL Studio does. And also big advantage in Ableton that here we have like a search bar and we can easily search for the effects or sounds that we want.
I do think there is something similar in FL Studio.
Yeah, but it's very slow, actually.
So I can already assume that resampling or stretching features in Ableton will be used while resampling these hi-hats and kick drums channels.
Maybe I move up the BPM a bit. But basically, when you have, I don't know how familiar are people with the live view of Ableton. It's basically that like this line here can be like a track if you add the elements together.
Yes, you can launch multiple clips in a single row.
Yeah. And it has an advantage not just for live performance, but also for creating your arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm showing like very, very basic stuff now. So if somebody is a pro, don't be hard on me, and just for like showing the very basics of how it works, because there are many guys out there who don't know about it at all. So this part is kind of bit for the starters.
I will tell you for sure that almost everyone who has ever sent me an Ableton project did not arrange the whole track using the session view. So it's definitely okay if you show the total basics.
Okay. Yeah. So last point for you, if you have like a little MIDI controller for the if you have like a small MIDI controller, maybe a Novation Launchpad or just
Akai APC.
Yeah, I'm just checking the exact name of it. I have it just in my room. I just have to open the case. I'm not using that much it, but it's the Akai APC Mini.
Mm-hmm. If I remember well, it has also a few faders you can assign as well for volume control.
Yeah, you have faders, and basically by default it will recognize it as like these faders here, like the button faders.
Mm-hmm.
And you can control those faders, and you can launch by buttons. You can launch those clips that you drag into there. By pressing the buttons or stopping them or soloing or muting the track. And basically, like, you can map it any way you want, like a MIDI mapping option.
Mm-hmm.
Can give you like endless possibilities, basically.
There's also a feature that you can assign more controls than just a volume one to the APC, and then if you press some button on that controller, you can use these buttons that you usually use for launching clips to adjust some parameters.
Yeah, you can do like different things like that. Also, I think an even cheaper option, some similar price range, is the Launchpad Mini by Novation.
Mm-hmm.
It does not have like faders, but it has like buttons to launch, and it's like really compact. It can fit in your backpack, and you can go to an after party and perform in Ableton Live. You know, things like that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And you can also spice up a bit your creative workflow if you're stuck with some things. So you can just try out the things here. Even without any controller, you can try out how it's work.
Okay, but I do have a question. If you want to use a session view to create an arrangement, it would be nice to have different clips of the same channel, because a different clip would have a different pattern or different rhythm and so on. So far we just have a single clip for each channel.
Yeah, but you're just gonna figure out and maybe add some more elements, or maybe add here another few channels to try out like what's work. And also a good part about Ableton is if you, let's say, I launched the hat and I I was just searching around, and basically, if you have the BPM set up, the loops that you select in the preview, it's gonna also match the BPM. So even without dragging into the project, you can test out some sounds in the right BPM.
Yeah, that speeds
So that's
up sound selection a lot.
Yeah, that's a really cool function because you don't have to drag the loop, adjust it, whatever. That's different in FL Studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found like a baseline thing. Let's try this one out. As you can hear, we already have much better groove.
Yeah, because of more percussive sounds added. What I'm wondering about is you exported the channels from FL Studio where you had the project BPM set to, if I remember well, 154 BPM, but now we are doing the arrangement.
It was 64.
64. Okay. Because yes, there is a small BPM difference in Ableton.
Sorry,
and FL Studio.
65, 165. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And does it mean that you don't want to have the same BPM in Ableton?
I just did it on purpose, like to show you it's not gonna like greatly destroy the audio if you
Okay.
do like 5 BPM change in Ableton, because in Ableton it do it a really nice way.
Mm-hmm. You are taking advantage of that good stretching feature.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it happens that I use Ableton just to stretch some loops and export that loop, the desired BPM, and use that later in FL Studio.
Okay.
That happens sometimes. I'm gonna search for like a synth or something. It sounds badass, even it's mainly from sample pack, and loops.
Do you have any tips on how to select samples,
Yeah.
how to find samples that fit the current beat most?
One
Yeah?
One important thing already that I can tell is that for me, it took like years, and basically since I'm a child, I'm used to music and musical hearing. But that's a key point, that make sure if you use like melodic elements that it's gonna fit the key of the track. And maybe if you use like different key sounds or sequences, use them in a different section of the song. For example, the reason why I muted this other loop, because I was feeling it's not matching this synth sound. It clashes together. But if I use them separately in the project, they're gonna work fine in the track as a whole, just not together.
Okay, and could we now play both that percussion loop and the synthesizer? You
Yeah.
say they are clashing?
Yeah. I'm just...
Mm-hmm. And you can
maybe it's not that like typically clashing, but I just, even for a little bit, I feel it's not working together that well in the context. Even if soloed, it kind of works actually. In soloed, it's not like a big problem. But in the context of the whole track, you can listen it now. So at the end, it had some problems with each other, I think.
Yeah, the melody becomes different. And that
Yeah,
could
yeah,
be the
that's
moment
why.
where also the key of the whole synth
Yeah.
loop temporarily changes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, we have like basically, maybe we could have add like one extra layer to it, but even that is like a good amount. Yeah, sometimes like it can also be a golden rule that less is more. Like there are some guys who layer like I would say, I don't know, 15 different hardstyle kicks or like similar kicks that does not work each other, and you got cancel out the frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also a case when less is more. Like it's the same with layering, it's the same with building like a groove, building a foundation. Is that each sound has to have its own purpose, because if there's no room or no need for a sound in a track, then why you should add it? Like I cannot do like let's say one screech sound loop and one rave stab melody loop, and add them all together, it would not sound good just because itself the sound or the loop is good. So, and the same applies for mixing. Like everything has to have its own place, and the whole concept of making electronic music, I think, is about that.
Yeah, so everything has to make sense.
Yeah. So basically, I'm gonna show the original purpose why I opened Ableton to show you is the arrangement use of the live session.
Mm-hmm.
Is that basically you can just hit one loop or you can hit record first, for example.
Are you going to record the clips into the arrangement view?
No, it's recording basically. No, I can start to add what I feel that should come next. So it's just a quick example that you can play around with the loops, launch them when you feel that you want to launch it. And then if you go to the other view, you can see it's basically dragged inside the project as you launch them. And if you want to turn it into a project and you want to work on it, adjust some things or adjust it to the BPM. I mean, like not the BPM, like the beats, you know? You can just hit this button and it will become like active inside the project. So it's very useful if you have some really good elements for a track and you make this kind of like a progressive tracks, let's say. It's really good to use the performance mode. So basically you can build this kind of arrangement really quick, because I do struggle with that too a lot of times, actually.
Yeah, and if you would be lucky, you could create a whole arrangement with just a single recording like that.
Yeah, for sure. You know, as you can see, I was not on the beat perfectly, but you can adjust these kind of things, because I move it to the 8, I move it to the 33, move it to the 17th, and now it's like, actually it's accurate and can be used as a, I mean, maybe this part not, but at least the first part is like, basically we have like a working arrangement. So that's the main point of this. So, you know, if you have some cool ideas started and you make this kind of progressive techno or whatever genre it is, actually, you can basically do the arrangement and do everything for an EP in one day. Like, you can produce one EP in one day if you do this kind of style.
Yeah, if you had multiple clips, and indeed if you had a MIDI controller like the APC one,
but
that would
even
be definitely possible.
As I showed you, even if you don't have a MIDI controller, it's not perfect. It's not gonna be the same, but you can try to click with the mouse and build something.
We can even remember how we made that initial arrangement inside of FL Studio. How much time did that take in comparison to how much time did it take in Ableton? Because now we have a kind of similar arrangement as in FL Studio.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but it's mainly about the workflow of it. Like, it's much more enjoyable to, let's say, if you have like a MIDI controller and you can basically do the whole track while you are inside of it, you are performing it. So it's a really nice way. And by the way, if you build like a live set, for example, like with different kick loops, hats, whatever, there's also like a function here that if you press here, then the whole line of sounds, loops, gonna start together.
Yes.
And we also have that in mostly on the controllers as well.
So what do we do with such an arrangement next?
I would do, if that's not exactly my style that I make, but it can be useful for that too. But I would finish it with like to perform this, record this track, and maybe later add some automation on effects, add some more sound as well, like let's say run the kick and add like a crash or like an impact sound. So basically just add some FX to it.
Yes, now we have talked about using a session view to create an arrangement faster. In the part with FL Studio, we have been also talking about using some of the percussion sounds also during the intro and the breakdowns to make individual sections of the track also more coherent. So that would make two main tips you gave us so far. Regarding either the arrangement and songwriting, we have been talking also a bit about what DJs to expect from the arrangement, that it should be quite fast-paced. What else could you say from a DJ perspective on either songwriting or the arrangement? Because slowly we will be also moving on to another thing you wanted to talk about, that is sending promos to DJs, how to approach them. So to, for example, maybe not spam them on Instagram 10 times per day.
Yeah. Although I wanted to talk about that topic as well, and I also wanted to talk about that the reason why I'm not basically doing the production part of this tutorial like so practical, that I'm saying things like, okay, then you should put a compressor there, distortion there, EQ there, and you should cut this frequency and whatever, is because it basically always different all the time for me. Like as I told many times before, like you have to use your ears, use your own imagination, your creativity, and tutorials. For me, actually, this kind of music, there are some tricks and tips that I do use, that I learned from tutorials, but not many of them. Like I'm not using really any kind of particular thing that, okay, then I'm gonna process my sound this way or this way because somebody did it this way in a video. My main approach is to produce my own stuff, and that's what I want other guys to do as well. Like maybe you make something that you should not supposed to make, and it will turn out great. We will be talking about that. I can share a few tips about sending promos. Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. We can now talk about that.
Yeah. Basically, for me, even if I'm not that kind of like a superstar, really huge big artist, but I do get a lot of promos, and sometimes it's hard to handle it. I would say, and I suggest, maybe the best option for it is SoundCloud DMs, because I do get promos from different people in Instagram as well, and I mean it's no problem. I'm fine with that. I'm like a pretty friendly person, so anybody can send me a DM about everything, but sometimes it's just gonna get lost. I do experience that a lot of time, even if not about promos, about anything regarding music production, that I know that I want to check this message, I want to check the promo or whatever, but after that I got like 100 more messages and it's got totally lost, and I'm not even able to find it because maybe I'm not remembering the username, something like that. So that's why I would suggest to use maybe email as well. Can work, but possibly the best option is SoundCloud DMs. Maybe you can do like a SoundCloud DM and later send like a reminder Instagram DM that, hey bro, I sent you some tracks on SoundCloud. I hope you're gonna enjoy it, or something like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. So the main point is that when you get so many messages on Instagram, sometimes yes, you can't simply reply to all of them, and it doesn't always have to mean that you are ignoring someone. The message just got lost among many others, and that's why you prefer to get demos on either email or SoundCloud, where people message you less often.
Yeah, that's also disadvantage of being an artist. Like sometimes even with friends, you know, I'm at a gig and they just DM me that they want to meet or something like that, and I'm just not able to see it because there's another 10 messages or 15 or 20.
It also sounds counterintuitive, because you could say that, yeah, if someone has an Instagram, probably he sits on Instagram most of the time.
Yeah, and basically today's word in music, you have to, kind of, but at the same time I'm also trying to get off from a bit of the so digital and so online life, because it's like I think it really kills your creativity, your passion as well. Like when you see like some people that are not like super talented, but they play like huge main stages, and at the same time you're stuck in a bedroom or playing such smaller gigs and things like that. That can be frustrating actually, and there's a lot of artists who are like that. I mean, who are like not many, don't have many gigs, or not like really big gigs, but they deserve it. So for them, or for me even, sometimes it can be frustrating to see that, and it's hard to keep the focus on music, you know?
Yeah. It's also difficult to be, yes, both a DJ and producer.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to force yourself to be nice, you know?
Okay, so if I, for example, was a beginner producer and I decided that my latest track sounds decent and I would like to send it to someone like you as a for a promo, I do already know I want to try using not Instagram, but for example SoundCloud or email. I whip out an email message to you, and let's say that my email is still maybe after maybe 10 or 12 other messages for promos requests. That means on the inbox alone you have already 20 different messages similar to mine. Probably because once you get more and more popular, more and more people write to you, so it might be a situation that you not even open all of these emails. Are there some things that you look out to, and are there some things that make you even not open a SoundCloud link if someone sends you for promo?
No, I have a tip for the DJs who are actually receiving promos, that I have on my phone. I have set up my email, so whenever I got a promo email, I just flag it as, or mark it as like important, and I check later my important emails, and there and like there's a big chance that I'm gonna check it later because I flagged it, and I can see it's a promo. Yeah, and the thing that you were talking about, like red flags, you were saying, like you were talking about that.
That's
like,
that's a good description. Red flags.
Sometimes the thing that most DJs, including me, don't like is when I receive a promo that is like with hype edit link. You are a DJ or an artist and you wanna send a promo and you want the DJ to play it. Your goal has to be is like the person who opened it, who you sent your promo to, has to spend the smallest amount of time possible to download your track.
Just in case someone...
sometimes if there's like a hype edit link in a promo that I receive in DM, for me I listen to it, but if it's not like the hit song of the year, I'm not gonna download it.
Just in case someone doesn't know, a hype edit is some sort of a download gate that lets you download a track for free in exchange for following the producer's social media or something like that.
Yeah, it's a download gate. And I mean, I have no problem with that if I'm searching for the tracks, like I'm looking at a release of some labels and I find the download gate there. I have no problem with that because I was searching for the track.
What if
so basically, to sum it up, for promos, you should always send in DM a download, like a downloadable file on SoundCloud, like direct download from the upload from the file.
Yeah, so something like indeed SoundCloud or maybe Google Drive, where with a single click you could download the track.
I don't want to say that Google Drive is also a good option because, yeah, if I'm asked for that promo, like I have some artist friend that I asked for the track that, hey bro, I saw it in your story, can you send me? Yeah, then it's okay because I already know the track. But SoundCloud is much better option because I already have a preview there. Sometimes Google Drive, it's a bit of pain in the ass to do. Open it and listen to it, or with WeTransfer. So that's why even on my phone, if I'm on the road or I'm just laying in the bed, I can easily check it out on my phone if you send me a SoundCloud link.
Ah, yes, that makes sense.
So SoundCloud link that is private link and download able or not private, it's your choice. If you're self-release and you just enable download, it's okay. But these are the main factors that easy to download, easy to listen. You can put like with big letters on the screen. Easy to listen, easy to download. That's the heart of sending a promo.
Did it ever happen to you to reach out to a producer directly because he made a track that good that you personally wanted to include in your set? Or is it always that people reach out to you and you pick the tracks from what you are sent?
Oh, sometimes it happens as well that I found some track that is not enabled for download, and I DM the artist that, hey bro, maybe you can send me this track because I really wanna play it at my gig, and maybe if you live there, I can give you guest list or something like that. But yeah, it happens definitely that if I found something that is like hard to access, I probably I'm gonna ask for it if it's a real good track. In other case, if it's enabled to purchase like on Bandcamp or Beatport, I'm not really the guy who asks for the tracks that are paid tracks. So I do spend a lot of money on tracks as well, because of the quality and as well, and to support the label and support the artist.
Mm-hmm. So if you want to play some track, you are fine with buying the WAV file.
Yeah, like I think I have like 0 tracks in my collection that are like downloaded from YouTube or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Totally 0, because of the quality as well. That's not a big deal. I could spend 1-2 euros on a track. It's not like a big deal, and it's also a good way to find out if a track is really good, because if I'm gonna pay for a track, then it should be good, you know.
Another red flags you could say about send-in promos. For example, if, I don't know, someone sends you a track that sounds decent, but the project is not either fully finished or maybe the track isn't mastered.
If it's if it sounds good and I'm able to play it, even if it's not like fully finished, I have no problem with that. It's totally okay. Maybe if they would approach it like, wow, this is the banger of the year, the best track ever made, something like that, that would be like a red flag for me. That pretty sure that person is so egoistic, but I'm not really experiencing things like this. So, but anyway, like a nice message is also a good option. Like give some compliments to the, if it's honest, give some compliments to the person you send your demo to. And it actually feels good when I, for example, hear that some guy tell me that I started DJing because of you, or I started producing because of you, and things like that. That feels good for sure. And you can add this kind of messages, and maybe you should add this kind of messages to the demos, to the promos that you send.
Also, that sounds more honest and down to the ground than just someone saying, "Oh, my track is super great," and you will regret that if you don't play it.
Oh, yeah. Even if I'm not playing a track, sometimes I do give some little feedbacks, like at least if I don't give any feedback or I don't download it, I always try to say thanks for sending, because of course we should appreciate each other for taking the time. Oh, and yeah, maybe a red flag could be if there's nothing more than just a link.
Mm-hmm. So just the message is
Yeah,
only the link
yeah,
and
just
nothing more.
I just say, hi, here's my new track. I hope you like it. That's all. Basically, you can get away with that pretty easily.
Okay. I'm also interested in your experience and yes, supporting someone by playing their track during your set or with your tracks being supported by other DJs. How much in your experience does that contribute to, maybe one's popularity or in other words, credibility?
For example, it's a good topic that you bring, because just right before we started this session, I just saw the videos of Techno Festival on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and in the post there was like, I don't know, 7 videos, and one of them was like a DJ girl playing my track in Techno.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And actually, my whole international kind of career started with Prim supporting my music, my around the world edit. I think Maybe he supported it first at Extreme Outdoor Belgium, and then later Fairnip. And after that, my SoundCloud was totally went on skyrockets,
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a good track that has like a really great potential, then a support can help a lot. But if you have like I would not say bad track, but it's good enough to play, but not so special track, then a support is not gonna skyrocket your career. I do have a lot of supports still. Dian is also playing a lot of my tracks or played before. Also some supports from very various people, like even Gordo, that was before. I go to supports, for example, EDC Las Vegas or Tomorrowland.
And for you personally, your international bookings started just once you got supported, yes?
Yeah, it was definitely after that.
Mm-hmm.
And you also asked me about like the thing that when I'm supporting other people's music, I really like to support and play the tracks by basically any artist. Like there are some guys that have 30 or 60 followers on SoundCloud, but they send me a really fire good track as a promo. I'm definitely gonna play it. I don't care like if they have a big name or not. The thing that I'm happy about, like there's many artists who are kind of getting better gigs than me and playing bigger shows, but they still send me promos because they did not forget where they come from, and possibly I was having a huge impact on their musical development as well, like a few years ago, like 2 years ago. And they like my music, and maybe that's why some of them I started, but they still send promos. That's cool.
Yeah, that also sounds wholesome. Anything more you would like to add regarding the branding, or?
I have to work more on that, but it started to get better. We are just facing the same problems as let's say festival EDM faced before, like or basically any very big genre, is that the market is getting overcrowded.
Mm-hmm.
The standards for like let's say a mixdown for a master, it's getting higher and higher in some labels. So we have to produce even more advanced ways, and that's why I'm also planning to do modular live sessions or with drum machines. I'm also already started building my own Eurorack modular setup, so that's gonna be part of my future as well.
Yeah, a part of your future
Yeah,
studio.
because nowadays playing with like modern DJ players, even though I cannot play on vinyl, or I'm not saying because of that, but today, or sorry, like in today's world, playing on just CDJs, it's not like highly difficult. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people can learn it very fast, but live performance with synths is a different thing. You have to develop a lot of skills for that.
Regarding the labels, you have mentioned that the requirements or the mixdown and mastering standard is becoming higher and higher for labels. Having said that, maybe from your knowledge or experience, just out of curiosity, how many people do mix and master their own tracks, the tracks that are later appear on a label? Sometimes it might happen that a label has its own person who does all the mastering for any EP that is released, so all the tracks sound more or less alike. But what about the mixdown? Does it happen often that the producer also does the mixdown by himself or herself? Or it is more often that the track is being sent to someone else for mixdown as well?
It's a difficult topic because if an artist can make like a really, really good mixdown to work with, then basically anybody or any standard mastering will sound great on it. But if some artist has some problem with the mixing stage, then like a basic master from the label is not gonna work that well. Sometimes the problem with the label masters, like I don't usually work with label masters. I mostly use my own masters because sometimes I combine the stages of mixing and mastering in my project, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
But
you could, for example, export the stems and do the stem mastering for yourself.
yeah, or doesn't even export the stem, just do the mixing and mastering at the same time. Sometimes I do like this, but I do offer mastering, of course. So I also offer work from for other people if you know if they provide a good mixdown. I can do a really great master. So I'm seeking for experience. Like there's an artist called DSTBL. He makes some kind of neo rave tracks, and mostly he always do the mastering by me, and he always sends really good mixdowns that I can work with very easily, and I can make a really good result out of it. So yeah, mastering is not like a magic thing that's gonna fix your mix.
Yeah, usually it's just the mix that has to be improved. And yes, when you have been talking about that you kind of merge both mixing and mastering into your project, I can imagine that it's going to end up with something that sounds better than a mastering done by, yes, the person that works with a label. I can imagine that if you are mastering the track by yourself and you find that something doesn't sound quite well, you can always return to the mixdown and improve the sound by yourself. And probably someone who doesn't know you well, who works for a label, will not bother with texting you back with a message in style of, my mastering would sound better if you return to your mixdown project and, I don't know, glue the percussion more.
So basically merging the process of mastering and mixing can work great, but I think only if you are really experienced. Because in other ways you can end up like I would say like changing faders, volumes all day and switching on and off things on the master. So you can end up in a big black hole of this. So you have to build a bit of confidence in music production to be able to do this, in my opinion.
I guess that would be everything for today then. We are going to have already an hour and a half long material for this video, which should be enough for our viewers. That might be treating this session as a podcast because here we have been talking about a lot, and there was a bit less of work and dough involved. What I can say. I want to thank you very much for having another call because we have spread this single session over 2 different meetings. So thank you for finding a time 2 times. So if you would like to leave some message for my viewers that managed to watch the whole thing. If you have some final words to say before we end, now it would be the time.
I would say just a very basic thing that just do it. And you're gonna learn a lot of things along the way, and basically that's the rule. And also try to focus on developing your hearing, spend a lot of time with music, and try to develop your own sound. I often, when I started, I often got this advice as well, like develop your own sound, and I was like, oh, okay, and I was not really getting it, like, how should I do this? But finally, it kind of happened because I was just doing it, learning every day, and experimenting with different genres. Because I started with very, very different kind of music, so it was for me was a switch because I was experimenting. So maybe if you are a techno producer right now, maybe start to experiment with some drum and bass or whatever, and you end up like the best producer of drum and bass one day or something like that. Like you don't have to stick to genres.
Did you also switch from drum and bass to techno?
No, I was more like a festival EDM guy, like Peak Room.
Ah, yes, I remember. I think I've asked that question some time ago.
Yeah, I think we were talking about that.
Okay, so we will be wrapping this video up once again. Thank you very much for being another guest on my channel, and have a great evening.
Thank you, bro. Wish you the same.